Hello, everyone, and welcome back for another episode of the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast. The Outdoor Adventure Series celebrates individuals and families, businesses, and organizations that seek out and promote the exploration, stewardship, conservation, access, and enjoyment of the outdoors. Our guest today is Anand Kumar Sankaran. Now, Kumar is a backpacker and wilderness photographer. He also writes a newsletter about hiking and backpacking and equipment reviews. And rumor has it he is also a podcaster. Well, see if we can fit some time in there to hear about that adventure. But Anand, it is a great pleasure to have you on the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. As you said, it's the magic of social media that you discovered me, and thanks for having me. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Fantastic. And for our listeners, a lot of what we do is so tied back into social media. And I think Anand had seen or one of my postings on Instagram, because I usually share an image and a link to an episode, and he liked and followed the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast. I went and was curious, like, who is this guy? And I discovered he is an absolute phenomenal photographer. And as I say, the rest is history. So, Anand, tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background, and I want you're going to some phenomenal places up in the, California, the Northwest, and I'm actually a little envious, by the way. But tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, I'm a engineer by training and profession. I am a first generation immigrant to this great country. I immigrated to the US and California in 1999. And I've pretty much lived all my life in California. And it's to my somewhat mild regret that I actually visited Alaska and other national parks before I discovered the Sierra Nevada. The first time I saw Sierra Nevada was in 2004, about 5 or 6 years into this country. And then I was just taken aback. This was October, and the Sierra Nevada had just had the first snow. And I could not tell if I was still in Alaska, which I was in July, or I couldn't believe I was in California. That led me, I was driving on Highway 395, and my friend, who's a backpacker and an outdoor adventurist, had mentioned the name of Galen Rowell, the photographer, writer, hiker, climber, adventurer before. But I accidentally walked into his gallery. It used to be called the Mountain Light Gallery in Bishop, California.
Okay.
And I was absolutely stunned by the pictures. And when I realized 90% of the photos that Galen had presented in that gallery were taken within a 20 to 30 mile radius of where I was. So I'm in Owens Valley, which at 4,500 feet of elevation is the deepest valley in the world, or one of the deepest, because you're at 4,500 feet. The Sierra Nevada is at 14,500 if you consider Whitney, or 13 to 14,000 feet. And within a few miles, you have this 10,000 feet difference, this magnificent mountains. And any road you take west from Highway 395, it's magical, right? And I think I started actively photographing the Sierra Nevada then. But then I was not a hiker. I was not a backpacker. And I slowly started hiking. I had health issues that I had to sort. And I started hiking, doing day trips. I had two very close friends who are both scout parents. Both their sons were Eagle Scout. And one of them has been telling me for a decade that I should start backpacking. And eventually the bug bit. Once I started backpacking and then I started experiencing the high Sierra, there was no going back. And since then, pretty much every year, I now spend at least a week or two minimum in the Sierra Nevada, trying to backpack, get into the wilderness. And it so happens that I'm a photographer. I'm one of those few folks whose two primary hobbies kind of coincide. So I do carry my camera gear, hopefully lightweight, along with my trips. And I take photos, and this is where it all started. I started taking photos during COVID. We are all sitting at home. I started sharing the pictures not just to my friends, not just to my Facebook. I started sharing it next door, the neighborhood social network.
Sure.
I
Sure.
was kind of taken aback by the reaction of folks. Now, the city I live in, it's called Pleasanton.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And Pleasanton is right next to Livermore, where there's a massive labs, Lawrence Livermore Labs. It turns out when the Lawrence Livermore Labs were started in the 60s, Pleasanton had the highest percentage of PhDs in the country. Something like 65% of the population were PhDs. That entire set of initial settlers are all aging. And all of them were kind of cooped up inside their home. And they were like, oh my God, I mean, I've not been to the Sierra Nevada in many years. I did the John Muir Trail once in my life, or when they were 12 or 13. And the reaction, the emotional responses they generated was like a huge boost. And I realized, oh my God, this actually makes a difference to people.
Right.
So I got a little bit more serious about presenting my photographs and starting to work with my local community. And that's where it all started.
Okay.
So a little bit of history there. Yeah.
Sure. How did you get into shape for the hikes? Because, and I'll get this out of the way now. I would encourage you to check out the Outdoor Writers Association of America.
Yeah.
I'm a member of it. There are a number of writers, photographers, and their passion is the Pacific Crest Trail, the John Muir Trail.
Yeah.
And one individual, Ethan Goligly, wrote a book called The Trail.
Yeah.
And
I'm reading it right now. Yeah.
Yeah. So you are in some great company, and Ethan, I know, is an accomplished hiker, and I'm curious how here I am sitting at a desk in Las Vegas, Nevada. I need to get out more, but how did you get into shape to begin to not only do a day hike, but also to do some of these overnight hikes as well? How did you get up to speed on that?
I think it started, I mean, I was overweight, not that long ago, like 10 years ago. I was still very overweight. And it so happened that one day after a really tough day at work, I actually slept on the wheel driving back on the freeway.
Oh,
Right.
wow.
I slept for a few seconds and then I woke up, my car swerved, somebody honked or whatever. And then I go see a sleep specialist. And the sleep specialist basically said, people like you are who we call as walking dead. And he said, you will die within the next 2 years. And he said, either you will sleep again on the wheel and that'll be the end of you, or you'll have a massive heart attack and you will die. And then he went through a sleep study and so on. It turns out I had severe obstructive sleep apnea.
Okay.
And on the AHI scale, I measured 93, 94.
Okay.
And, if you have sleep apnea, you know that that's a fairly high number, right? So that also explained why I had no energy at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I was wiped out. I couldn't exercise. Like I couldn't go on really long hikes. So the first step in my recovery to health was to treat my sleep apnea, which involved a CPAP machine.
Sure.
But I had to go through a nasal septoplasty to open up my nasal passages, even for the CPAP machine to work.
Oh, wow.
Right. So I went through nasal septoplasty, got the CPAP machine, and about 6 months after using it, I started realizing that my mental acumen was still sharp at the end of the day as it started. And then I started exercising. I joined a small local gym and then I started doing whole body workouts. Started with 3 days, 4 days, started working out 5 to 6 days a week. Then I started doing long walks. And living in the Bay Area, I mean, one can hike 12 months a year. And there are so many really nice hikes to go about here. I started hiking a lot. And one thing led to the other. And as I said, I had 2 really good friends who convinced me that I should take up on backpacking. And I was still reluctant. I was reluctant until I hiked Half Dome. This was, I think, 2016. I hiked Half Dome. I'm struggling all the way. And then after about mile 10 or 12, I wasn't enjoying it at all. I mean, if you hike Half Dome, it's like a nearly 20-mile round trip. You're climbing 5,000 feet and I'm in like absolute agony. And I'm like, I'm not enjoying this. I like what I see here. That's like, I like the taste of High Sierra, but I don't want to hike 20 miles a day. How do I experience High Sierra if I can only hike 8 to 10 miles a day. And my friend is like, backpack. This is exactly what you back. And I said, okay, I take you up on your word. And I think my first backpacking trip was to Cathedral Lakes.
Okay.
And Cathedral Lakes in Yosemite, it's a comfortable day hike. It's like about 5 miles from the trailhead. But once you go there 5 miles and then you just sit there and soak in the atmosphere, jump into the lake. You watch the sunset and you watch the sunrise. Once you watch a High Sierra sunset and sunrise, and then you realize, oh my God, this is what Galen Rowell saw. This is what Galen Rowell photographed. And now a lot of his writing, Galen has written multiple books, lots of books. His most popular book is called The Mountain Light,
Okay.
that he talks about. And then he has the Art of Outdoor Photography, where he talks about his ethics of how he photographs. And Galen was also one of the first people to actually climb the face of El Capitan while he is photographing it.
Okay.
So he kickstarted the whole thing. This was this adventurer who was climbing all the great mountains in the world. He summited all the 7 summits across all continents. And that is when it hit me. This is not Photoshop. The Alpenglow Galen photographs actually happens.
Yes.
It's kind of funny that in his gallery, people would refuse to believe that these are natural colors. So he actually had a slide under loop, so you can look through it and see this is the actual color. He shot like Velvia 25, gorgeous colors. And people wouldn't believe that this color can happen in real life. So once that happened, then it's a question of, I think, going from a day hiker to an overnight backpacker is like 80% of the leap.
Right.
And once you go past that, going from 1 night to 3 nights is like a slightly higher leap, because you have to get used to wearing the same clothes again and so on. And I think that's a mental block. I think after 2 or 3 days, it's all, you're just carrying extra food. That's about it.
Sure. Yeah. I would love to be able to do that. And reading from some of your backstory, you have figured out how to take care of yourself and from the perspective of the sleep apnea. And there's other procedures, and there's the mouthpiece that you wear on you in the effort to get to that. But just being able to experience the hike, the enjoyment of something that's a reasonable hike, but experiencing the sunset, the sunrise. I'm all about sunrises and cups of coffee. That's my passion. But the idea of sleeping out underneath the stars is just something I just have always wanted to do. And I love the fact that you had this positive growth mindset to really set out and put whatever was your ailments behind you, and also to experience, for the sake of better words, the best of what this country has to offer, which is its natural resources and the grandeur of the mountains and the waters and streams.
Absolutely. Again, Galen, after hiking all 7 continents, the summits of all the 7 continents, he said the Eastern Sierra has everything the world has to offer.
Yeah.
And the more I hike every year, I'm starting to understand what he meant.
Okay. Now, how did you then bring in the photography aspect of it for your personal enjoyment? Like, I take photos when I go out hiking here. I have my camera with me. How did you begin to not only take photos, but actually you have what I would call a side hustle? You have your day job still, but then you have this business of wilderness photography. How did you begin to incorporate that into your lifestyle?
I do believe that everyone should hike their own hike. I was following 2 wonderful hikers this year who were trying to break the FKT, the fastest known time on Pacific Crest Trail. One was going north to south and the other south to north. That's one way to experience the wilderness. For me, particularly the John Muir Trail, the scenery changes every 300 to 400 feet. And it's so spectacular. One of the reasons I enjoy backpacking is I have no internet connection. As a software developer living in Silicon Valley, I'm always connected. I only half jokingly say that I have an IP address of my own because I'm constantly fed information all along. Finally, for 2 to 3 weeks a year, I'm completely disconnected and I want to slow it all down.
Right.
Now it allows me to catch my breath. I can't rush. My ideal day backpacking is about 8 to 10 miles
Okay.
a day. Of course, there are days where we do 15, 17 miles, depending upon certain criteria. But the one way we slow down is by taking a lot of photographs. As photographers, we start to fall into this trap where if it's not sunset or sunrise or ideal lighting conditions, we don't take photographs. It was something that I had to grow out of. But now I take photos just to remember how it was. Then I started taking a lot more photographs. You're backpacking, you have a goal to reach a certain place, but at the same time, start working on composition and say, this looks really good. I can express how the grandeur of Evolution Valley from here, but I think I had a better view 100 feet before I crossed here. So I walked back, take photos. That's how it started.
Mhm.
And all of this, where in a lot of these photographs were sitting in my hard drive, pretty much unused. I only half jokingly call that is my 401k. When I retire, that's my retirement plan. I have these raw images that I can reach out to. But during COVID is when I started sharing that. And I actually saw people were enjoying it. And there were questions like, I did not know that this place exists in California. So that's when I said, okay, this is actually making a real difference to people. And that's when the idea of making it a side hustle started to take shape.
Okay. And when you are out there now, cameras and lenses, especially when you're doing a multi-mile hike, that weight adds up after a while.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So without going into specifics and getting into nitty-gritty details, are you using your cell phone? I mean, the photos you can take on a phone are wonderful. Are you taking, a big hefty, digital SLR, one of the newer cameras with a big lens? What are you taking out there? Because that weight does add up,
Yeah.
and there's a balance there.
If it is a short, I can comfortably carry about 40 pounds on my back. By the way, in my backpacking newsletter, it's called norcalhiker.net.
Mm-hmm.
I landed on this really funny looking backpack. It's actually called a body pack called ARN, AARN, ARN backpacks. ARN body packs are made in New Zealand. They were done by small indie manufacturer, and his name is R.
Mm-hmm.
The backpacks are kind of very interesting because they distribute the weight between the back and the front.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you think of all the military imagery that we have seen, what happens in the military, if you think of the packs that they're carrying, they actually have huge bags in the front.
Mm-hmm.
All the ammunition and everything is in the front. Their backpack is actually pretty tiny. The idea is the same. If you can distribute your weight between the front and the back,
Mm-hmm.
at a sweet spot, your back kind of starts to float on yourself, right?
Mm.
You can balance it. And Arnd has done a fantastic job. Now, in my newsletter, I have 2 detailed reviews of the Arnd body packs. So they look funny. And the comments I get are like, they vary from astonishment to ridicule, right? To see a grown man with huge bags in the front is kind of funny for people, but I don't care. All my food, all my camera gear, my batteries and everything are in the front.
Okay.
So I can comfortably carry 40 pounds.
Okay.
Now, when I go for short backpacking trips, like 2 to 3 days, I tend to carry my Nikon Z7 II and the 1424 2.8. I carry about 5 to 6 pounds of camera gear.
Okay. It's not bad.
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, 5 to 6 pounds, I can carry it. I even carry a tiny tripod. All of this, like my last backpacking trip, we went to Snow Creek in Yosemite. As Hurricane Hillary was coming in, on the day it was coming in, and I probably saw the most dramatic sunset just before thunder and lightning. And as someone said, I know you can hear lightning crack around you, thunder crack around you, and it echoes around your tent. And then we are counting 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. But before that, um, I was able to capture some great photos. Now, I also do longer backpacking trips. The longest I've done is only 2 weeks. Someday I'll do much longer, but anytime it crosses over like 1 to 2 weeks, I'm carrying extra food now. I use a smaller Nikon Z50 and I carry two lenses with it, a 14-20. I think it's I forget the exact specification, but it's about less than 2 pounds. But I have an ultra wide angle and a 1650 normal. It's about 2 pounds, but I get 20 megapixels of really high quality raw images, which, I mean, this is my, the smallish camera, but I have been able to print up to 30 inch by 45 inch out of this camera. I use Bay Photo, is a Bay Area based printer, and they're able to extract a lot of detail out of these raw images once they are processed well. So yeah, that's my gear. I do use the cell phone for a lot of videos, and almost all my Instagram reels are from that, from the the iPhones. Yeah.
Now, as you have continued to experience the hiking and the locales and taking more pictures, and as you're serving the side hustle aspect of this, you'll have your Facebook page with a store, an Etsy store. Are you doing the art show circuit? Where else are you showing your work?
I have my gallery, online gallery at anands.net, ANANDS.net. That's where it's fully self-serviced. It directly talks to Bay Photo, and then you can order prints there. That's one. The art show circuit is where I'm just getting started. My first art show is incidentally in a week.
Oh, wow.
I'm getting started with the art show circuit. Those are the two primary arenas for me at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I have a friend of mine, Linda Horton, and she takes a trip once, maybe twice a year to some exotic location. She comes back and then turns those all into prints for her Etsy store. But she also does the art shows in the Chicagoland area. What's it feel like to get started on that aspect of the marketing of your work?
So, two answers to that. I wanted to do something that takes me completely out of my comfort zone.
Okay.
And if you're an introverted engineer who is working in a computer all day long, how much more can you get a person like me out of my comfort zone? Put me in an art show where I'm selling stuff. And that's one of the primary motivations for me to do the art show, is that it's a new skills to learn. But at the same time, as you can imagine, I enjoy talking about the Sierra Nevada. I enjoy talking about the mountains. And a lot of these pictures have stories, and I think I can tell a good story. And if I sell some photos and if people buy it, I think that's an add-on. So there's a definite aspect of self-improvement there. That's one. And I think one of the greatness of America is how well we market ourselves at every stage. And that's a learning that I didn't have. Now I'm starting to learn how effective marketing can be.
Right.
So as an individual doing a business, the importance of marketing is finally sinking upon me. But I'm also starting to see how important marketing is for everyone. For instance, one idea that's been brewing in my head is, once I understood, like for a person like me to go into the mountains, I carry an InReach Mini 2 with me, with this foolish notion that if something happens to me, I'm going to hit the SOS button and somebody's going to come and rescue me. When I realized the Inyo County search and rescue is predominantly volunteer based, it kind of was a shocker, right? Because I know a lot of people who hit, not a lot, I know some people who hit the SOS and say, I rolled my ankle. I have to hike out 5 miles, but it's uncomfortable. So I'm going to call for rescue. And when I realized that it's volunteers who are volunteering their time and getting into these high-risk situations, so I started actively donating to Inyo SAR. And when my business is kind of set up and flowing, I want to figure out a way where I can actually contribute a good chunk of my profits to Inyo SAR. At the same time, I'm like, why did it take me this long to figure it out? Because Inuits, they don't market themselves. It's almost like, this is a learning that top of my head. So I'm saying it, but I think there's a lot to it. I used to think that all marketing is bad. So I'm starting to believe that, no, it's not. I mean, everybody has to do a lot of stuff. And how do you reach people? It's by marketing. But if there is like any plug that I want to do, it's for in your search and rescue. If you hike the Sierra Nevada, I think we owe a lot to the volunteers who help us out.
Sure. No, and I love that is you haven't come over and into what some folks might say the dark side of the marketing and the selling and the branding. It's just another experience of a different kind of light. And you kind of realize there's a lot of pieces in play and systems that
Yeah.
that we come across depending on the situations that we're in. And I love the fact that you're donating some of your proceeds to them, because so many folks, even here in Las Vegas, they go hiking in Red Rocks or Valley of Fire or Lake Mead, and they have a bottle of water and they're wearing
Yeah.
flip
Yeah.
flops. And it's like,
Yeah.
I just don't get that. So about your newsletter, NorCal Hiker, what is I mean, I can guess based on the name of the newsletter, but what is your focus? What are you sharing in the newsletter?
It started as equipment review. I've slowly gravitated towards using small independent vendors for everything, all my gear, right? It started with using barricades for the carbon fiber bear canisters. My tents are made by Top Tent, which is a very small manufacturer out of Nevada City in Sierra Nevada. And then I discovered the backpack. And as I'm searching this body pack, and I'm searching for reviews, I couldn't find any stateside. All the reviews were emanating out of New Zealand and Australia, right? Because that's where they're manufactured. It's a small indie vendor. They have a reseller here in Seattle, but there was no direct reviews, right? Likewise, my hiking poles that I use are a brand called Pacer Poles. It's made by one lady, a physical therapist who works out of her home in London,
Oh, wow.
right? And you're not going to see, I mean, if you just Google Pacer poles, you'll see the handle. There are incorrect ways to use a hiking pole, but there is no incorrect way to use a Pacer pole. When you see the shape of the handle, you'll know why,
Okay.
right? I've seen people when they're going uphill, the poles are in front of them and they're breaking themselves as they're going up. You can't do that with a Pacer pole. So I started it as I'm going to start writing equipment reviews for a lot of these small indie brands. And my aunt reviews are very popular, like so much so that An himself noticed it, and we've been going back and forth with that. That's where I started. And then I started writing a little bit about some of the hikes that I do in the Bay Area. There are a lot of places, a lot of people write about it, but I do hike a lot within the Bay Area. Here, the rolling hills, for about 3 to 4 months a year, this area is very, very green. So that's the second aspect of it. And the third aspect of it is, as I started focusing more on photography, I'm learning to tell stories by writing and Instagram reels. So at norcalhiker.net is where I tell those stories about photographs as
Okay.
well. Yeah.
And I will say this again, you need to check out the Outdoor Writers Association of America,
I don't,
because you would be welcome with open arms into the organization. So I'll
don't.
tell you that. I'm curious, you mentioned Hurricane Hillary and just the almost anywhere in the West, you just didn't want to be outside. Even here, I mean, we had parts of Death Valley were washed away. Okay.
Yeah, still closed.
Yeah. So you're up on the mountain, there's lightning around you. That's not the best place to be.
Yeah.
You're kind of exposed. So what was it like just being up there during the remnants of the hurricane coming through?
So on the day Hurricane Hillary made landfall, I was supposed to start a section hike of the John Muir Trail. I was supposed to start at Cottonwood Pass on that Saturday, I think 19th of August, and hike north till Kearsarge Pass, about 60 miles. We had given ourselves 6 days to do it.
Mhm.
And that Wednesday, I started learning about Hurricane Hillary. And this is a trip we have been planning for a year. So a part of me said we should go, at least go till Lone Pine, and then we figure out. And then I called the ranger, and the ranger initially they said, no, the next 2 weeks we don't want any of you to be here, right? And I'm like, no, maybe we should go to Lone Pine. But on the John Muir mailing list and the John Muir Trail Facebook groups, there's this gentleman called Ned Tibbetts. Now, Ned is a very experienced mountaineer, and I sought out to him for advice. I asked Ned, hey, Ned, I have to go on this hike to the JMT, and I'm supposed to start this Saturday, and what's your advice? Ned basically told me, here are the 7 ways you can die. Right. And I said, what if I stay inside the tent for he said, you will be stuck inside a tent for 2 days, 2 full days, and you will die of hypothermia. And he wasn't joking. I mean, this is a person who's very experienced telling me as it is, right? So basically he summarized all his discussion and his advice and said, only 2 kinds of people should go into the mountains the next 2 weeks. Really experienced search and rescue people who are going to rescue someone, or you are a fool who goes there and waits for rescue. Which one of this is you? And I said, if I go, I'm the second. And he said, don't go. The mountains aren't going anywhere, so don't go. But we looked at where the hurricane was crossing, and it was kind of initially it was supposed to go north, but it kind of turned eastwards and it started going towards Death Valley in Nevada. And I think the Las Vegas airport was closed for a few days. A little bit north in Yosemite Valley, the effects weren't supposed to be that pronounced, or so we thought. So we said, hey, our mind is set, so let's go for a shortish hike, like 6 miles. And the unfortunate reality is we said we'd go to North Dome. Even if you're caught in a storm, it's only 5 or 6 miles, we'll be able to walk back. Unfortunately, there was a fire. I think it's called Pika Fire this year in Yosemite. It burned 800 acres around North Dome, so they don't let anybody camp there. So we went to Snow Creek. I have hiked enough in the High Sierra to be prepared for thunderstorms. So a lot of the gear that I have helps me to take shelter within about 30 seconds. I think the fastest I've set up a tent is about 30 to 40 seconds and quickly get in. Somewhere thunderstorms are very common, and we always look for signs, avoid passes during all of that. We do all the right things. A couple of times, once at Lake Ediza. Lake Ediza is in this valley. You have Banner Peak on one side, Mount Ritter on the other side. You have the minarets surrounding you, and you are sitting in a deep valley. Same thing. We saw the thunderstorms come in. We quickly pitched our tent, sat in, and then we heard the first thunderclap, and then the thunderclap echoes around you. It's like proper surround sound. It's quite magnificent. I mean, it's scary, but if you follow the precautions, you're not pitched a tent underneath a tall tree, or you're not at the highest point, you're not at a pass. If you follow the guidelines of safe pitching a tent, and you are safe. And that's what happened to us at Snow Creek as well. We knew that we were safe. The wind picked up, and then we realized we should have tied extra guidelines, which we didn't. That was a mistake. I won't do it again the next time. But once you are in a relatively safe space, it's a quite dramatic experience just to sit there. I mean, of course, we didn't try to take any pictures of lightning. I mean, that would have been really silly. Mm-hmm. But just being there, experiencing the thunder and lightning is quite magnificent.
I can imagine, and as this gentleman had suggested to you, I personally would have enjoyed it from the comfort of my home, but you do you. So good for that. I am curious though, as you have been really actively hiking and exploring for a while now, since 1999, and well, that's when you first moved into the area and you began this journey to where you're at today. Thinking about Hurricane Hillary, that in some cases that's a result of, could be a fluke, could be a little bit of climate change.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, what are you seeing on your hikes that perhaps are climate change related or informed by climate change, especially in these areas like the Sierra Nevada?
The damage forest fires have caused is really sad. I mean, even in Yosemite, there are areas which have been completely burned out. I mean, I mentioned North Dome. There are sections between Cathedral Lakes and Little Yosemite Valley which are like completely burned out. There are cities, there are small towns along Pacific Crest Trail and John Muir Trail. There was a small town called Big Pine. Highway 395 has a series of these small towns. And one of the small towns is Lone Pine, which is right next to Alabama Hills, where a lot of the Western movies were shot or being shot. Like
Right.
Iron Man, the Afghanistan scenes were shot there.
Mhm.
Django Unchained was shot there in Independence. The small town along the area was completely gutted. Uh, Mammoth Lakes goes from a never-ending winter. I think they closed the ski resorts in August this year, and they had 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks of lull, and then the snow started again, right? That's one extreme. But only 2 years ago, fire came so close to Mammoth Lakes. They were so concerned that the city might burn down.
Mhm.
Uh, in Sierra Nevada, a lot of the ski resorts, uh, it's been very bad, right? The fire, the damage of fire. When you are backpacking, you can actually see it for miles on end. You're just walking through charred forests.
Mhm.
So I'm seeing that a lot. The second thing that's happening is the hiking season has greatly reduced right now. On a bad fire year, the chances of you hiking in late August or early September, the chance of fire are high. The air quality has gone south quite a bit. For 2 years or 3 years in a row, Labor Day, I take my family on every Labor Day, I take them deep into the mountains, places where they can easily access. 2 or 3 Labor Days in a row, air was so bad because of the forest fires that we couldn't go, right? And I'm seeing that take a tremendous effect. The Hurricane Hillary, Death Valley is still not open.
Right.
The roads get completely washed out. There are access points to South Lake and North Lake from Bishop, two very popular entry points to JMT. The road gets like completely, there's a lot of mudslides, take many days to clear, right? I'm seeing the communities there being devastated. Uh, as a nature enthusiast and as a hiker, you experience it when you hike. But I also see the hiking season shrink and shrink and shrink. I think we are now down to about 2 months of safe hiking,
Let's see. Wow.
which is very sad. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And I appreciate your perspective on that as somebody who lives and explores in that area. So that's reality versus perception and what the media will share with us. So thank you for that. I am curious as we start to come towards the end of the podcast today. You you've had quite the journey. You emigrated to the U.S. You started off someone. I get it. Professionals. I came from an IT background, and today I still my coaching practice. I'm on Zoom calls all day. Then I do my podcasting. It's a beautiful day outside. I can see a sliver of blue sky, and I should be out there. So you have traveled quite the journey to get to where you are today, and in the hiking and the exploring, the photography. What's been your what I would call for this episode your aha moment? Like, God, I can't believe I'm here and I get to do this. What's been your aha moment?
That's a good one. I mean, there are many, but like right at the top of my head, I think Evolution Valley has to be one of the most serene, calming places I have been. I'm also starting to practice meditation. One of my three friends, when he sees an open scene, open place, he just sits there and then let it all go and soaks it in. Uh, there are still, at least there is one active glacier still left in the Eastern Sierra.
Mhm.
The aha moment being, um, I'm in this place which has been shaped by nature over millions of years. And I get to experience the last few decades of it in terms of the glacier was very humbling.
Okay.
Uh, in particular, a lot of the John Muir Trail is spectacular, but Evolution Valley, uh, specifically was like, oh, I'm so lucky to be here. Everything I did in my life has kind of brought me to this. I can't wait to go back for sure.
I love it. I love it. And at this point, I'm going to be a little bit of an opportunist. On our webpage, outdooradventureseries.com, we have photo collages. I would love to be able to share, a couple photos to make some collages. And if there's one special or a couple from Evolution Valley or some of your other favorite shots, I'd love to be able to share some of those on our website
Absolutely.
as well.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, but before we head out, any final thoughts that you would like to share with our audience about your work, your journey, whether it's the hiking, the photography, maybe just the importance of just slowing down? What would be your insight to go to our listeners?
Yeah. I mean, you touched upon it. I think America is a very beautiful country. It's a very pretty country. And if you can, go outdoors and enjoy it for sure. Right. I
Okay.
do have another thing for your viewers.
Okay.
I'm giving away 16 by 24 print of your listener's choice. You can talk about how it's going to happen. You can go to my website at anads.net, anands.net. Pick any photograph you like, and Howard, how should the listener go about doing it?
I think that's a good segue. For our listeners, you would think Anna and I have planned this, or it's purely impromptu. But if you have seen his work, it is absolutely gorgeous, and so we feel grateful that Anand is open to kind of sharing this with our listeners. So what we would love you to do is when this episode is published, it will be on, of course, all the podcast directories, but we would like you to go to our website, outdooradventureseries.com. Whoever is the first to sign up to receive updates on the website and also to leave comments. So you got to sign up and we want you to leave a comment after you've listened to this episode and let us know what your favorite part of this episode was. So the first person who goes on to the outdooradventureseries.com website, signs up to get on our list to be notified of future episodes, and you have to leave a comment about what part of this episode you enjoyed the most with Anand. So we do appreciate that. Thank you so much. That's a great gift for our listeners. Before we head out, if our listeners would like to learn more about you and your work, where are the best places for them to go?
I think the best place would be my website, anands.net. I'm also on Instagram. I'm also on Facebook. The links are in my website, and I'm sure Howard would link them as well. My backpacking oriented newsletter is norcalhiker.net. And I'm all over the social media as I learn marketing. So you can catch me there.
Very good. Very good. Well, we will definitely provide the backlinks to the website, audience.net, as well as NorCal Hiker net is
Net.
not .net as well, and also to your social sites. It has been a pleasure to have you on the podcast today, Anand, and I'm so glad we connected via social media. So it's proof that social media works. And another great episode. I really appreciate hearing about your journey and just some of the experiences. And what goes without saying, your work is beautiful, and it's making me look forward to. It's got to cool down just a little bit so I can go do some local hiking here. But I definitely would love to get out to the John Muir Trail, the Pacific Crest Trail, even if it's to say I've been on it for a couple of miles. I'd be a happy camper there.
Yeah. Thank you for having me, Howard. It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Fantastic. Listen, stay in the line. We're going to do a quick close, and you and I can have a final chat. All right, folks, we have just been chatting with Anand Kumar Sankaran. He's a backpacker, wilderness photographer, and actually, I learned today he's also a bit of a podcaster. He podcasts on a sport that, at least here in the U.S., we know very little about. It's called cricket. We'll provide the backlink to it on our show notes. But just, again, for today, what a wonderful episode! Just to kind of hear about his journey coming here to the U.S., making a home for himself, and just really separating himself from his day job, which is as a technology professional, and making the commitment to not only get into shape, but to explore through hiking and photography some of the most beautiful places in the world for that matter. And so definitely you want to get out to his websites and social sites and learn more about Anand and his work. And you can also sign up for his newsletter. Now, okay, we'll have all those backlinks in our show notes. And as for us, you can find us on outdooradventureseries.com. This episode will be up in the coming weeks. And again, you gotta not only sign up for the newsletter, but you have to comment on this episode. What was it about this particular episode that really amazed you? But you got to be, whoever the first one is, they're the lucky ones that are going to get a free portrait image from Anna. It's going to be a 16 by 24 of your choice. Now, you can find us besides our website on our LinkedIn and Facebook pages, outdooradventureseries.com. We have our YouTube channel. We'll have a get to know you segment video with Anand. And then you can also find us on all of the major podcast directories. Now, we do like comments there as well, especially on Apple Podcast and Spotify. And so, but again, wherever you listen to your podcast, you'll be able to find us. Okay, folks, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, go out there, have a phenomenal day, and we will see you on a future episode of the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast. Take care now.